Okay, you are live, it says. Welcome everybody to the Graybeard Live. This is Bruce Buxton. I'm the Graybeard, and this is the live show that I do once a week, and trying to expose some of our Critigen people to the marketplace, as well as get some interesting ideas about GIS and GIS integration out there as well. So today, as I have advertised, I'm being joined by Jaime Crawford, who is our Senior Vice President of Strategic Accounts. And basically she kind of owns our commercial business. And so I want to introduce Jaime to you. Go ahead and let her rip, Jaime.
Hey, Bruce. Thanks for adding me to the Graybeard. I know we've been trying to find a date that worked well, so thanks for being flexible, but I'm finally excited to join, and I've managed to watch a few of them in advance, so I know what to expect. So
excellent. Can you see the comment from Tyler?
Oh, Tyler. Yes.
Yeah, so thanks for joining, Tyler. Look, Tyler just jumped right in and said hi. That's great. If you are on for the first time, well, let's see. If you're on for the first time, why don't you put in the comments where you're watching from? But if you're not on for just the first time, if you're just on, just why don't you say hi? Let us know you're there, because that helps us to know who we're talking to, and that would be great. Thanks for joining us today, Tyler.
Yeah, and Bruce always looks for more people to join him in the future. So.
Oh yeah. You're always a potential victim of the Graybeard. So don't get comfortable. Don't get comfortable.
Tyler and I go way back from my early days at PwC, which we'll talk a little bit about later on my first project there. So.
Right. Okay, good. Well, hey, just to give everybody kind of an idea of what we want to talk about today. Well, first of all, I did reprimand everybody last time, Jaime. I don't know if you remember seeing this, but I kind of reprimand because we're not getting a lot of questions. We're getting a few here and there, but we're not getting tons of questions. So I'm hoping everybody will listen to what we're talking about. And if you come up with questions or even just really good comments that you want us to address, geez, that would be great. Hi, Jeff, Karen, good to see you. Nathan, thanks for joining today.
I want to go over.
So look, I want to start by just, I know it's a special week for you, right? It's your birthday week.
It's my birthday week, yes. So I'm celebrating 40 something this week, and
you're 29. 29 again.
Something the anniversary of my 39th birthday.
There you go.
But yeah, obviously with COVID, not having a big party, but having some family over tomorrow to celebrate. See a few folks, but try to keep it small so that we stay safe. So
yeah, that's good. And I really respect you for doing that. I know that that's driving a lot of what they think is the infection across the country, our family gatherings, which is a total shock and a surprise, but hopefully everybody takes that into stride. I'm curious, like, you're not going to have a big party. How generally has COVID changed your life, and what
not traveling. Usually I'm on a plane every other week, 2-3 times a month. So the fact that I've been grounded since early March is strange. Yeah. Not getting in front of customers and not having workshops and interacting with people. And I think most people that know me, I'm an extrovert, so I get all my energy from other folks. So it's challenging to find ways to stay energized.
That's kind of what Mike was telling us last week, is he said, I rely on being around other people to get my energy. One of the funnier situations, I think, for me, I think about it a lot, because I'm only with Jaime once in a while. Well, the last couple of times I've been physically with Jaime, once we get our business done, then if she's around other people that travel as much as she is, the conversation always goes toward the perks that you get on different airlines.
All my airline points are almost gone now because I'm not replenishing them, right?
Well, I know the feeling, but I mean, that's part of what you talk about that so much, I think, because it's such a big part of your life, obviously. So anyway, hey, so that's good. Let's I want to tell everybody what we wanted to talk about today, in addition to dealing with your comments. And I hope you leave some comments and some questions. Hi, Zach. Thanks for coming. Appreciate you being here. And I know Jeff, it looks like Jeff's here from Bellevue. So good to have you too, Jeff. In addition to your comments and questions, we want to talk about something that Jaime and I have been talking a lot about, and that is how we work with our customers for the best customer outcomes. And we've coined this phrase called the collaboration spectrum. And Jaime, along with Tim Deck, one of our other sales individuals in the company, had collaborated on a new blog that will be posted hopefully in the next day or two about our our take on how we collaborate with our clients.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want that kind of to be the basis for what we talk about. But before we go down that road, Jaime, I was thinking about the story of Critigen, like how Critigen came about. And I thought it might help some people to understand a little bit more about, why we are where we are today. So we are, I think, one of the premier systems integrators relating to GIS integration in North America. And we haven't always been that. So maybe from your point of view as a very tenured person, maybe you could tell us a little bit about how that story evolves.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think a lot of people know that we were divested out of CH Hill 2009, but that's getting to be a really old story, right? That's 11 years now. That's kind of, we've moved on a lot from that. But, I ended up leaving Critigen back in, I don't remember what year exactly. It was a while ago, but a little less than 10 years ago. And went to work for PwC. So I started working on really large scale system integration projects. Maximo GIS integration was my first one. So when Tyler hopped on, he was at Laclede, now Spire, at that project. So I had a background obviously in GIS and had a background in utilities, but not these large scale implementations. So, spent about 2.5 years at PwC working on a variety of different utility projects, but all around GIS integration. And then got tired of being on a plane every week instead of every other week, and decided I wanted to kind of head back to Critigen. And at the time, Critigen had built up its relationship with SAP and had a really large scale project with the federal government on integrating GIS with SAP. And so they were starting to build up this capability around system integration and the SAP relationship. And so it was kind of a perfect storm for us to come back together, and really launched my first job back at Critigen. I guess it's been about 6 years now, was cultivating our geospatial system integration practice and sales efforts. So we've come a long way since then over the last 6 years, and we've expanded all the different types of way we integrate, whether it's SAP, Maximo, OSI Soft, a variety of other business systems, Salesforce now, Click software that's now part of Salesforce. So we're one of the few GIS companies that do that integration work. And all the integration work happened to be mainly in utilities or asset intensive industries. So again, at being part of CH Hill, we were water utilities, not a lot of electric and gas. But when we started doing our system integration work, it was typically with electric and gas companies. So we really started to build up that capability. And then with the utility network launch a few years ago, kind of got in on that as well. So now we're spending a lot of time both in the system integration space as well as in the utility space. So that's kind of the progression of how Critigen really has evolved over the last 5 or 6 years now.
Okay, so I didn't warn you about this question. We talked a little bit, just
yeah.
Full disclosure, we talked a little bit, but it just occurred to me. I'd love to hear your characterization of what makes GIS integration so challenging. I'm not going to, it's a lot of people attempt it. I think we do it better than anyone else, I believe, from everything I've heard in the marketplace. What makes GIS integration so challenging, in your opinion? And if you can't, don't.
I got it. Okay. I can summarize it. It's not typically the technology. I mean, the technology can work. It's the people and the business process part of it. I mean, typically these organizations, their GIS people don't talk to their asset management people, or if so, they just speak different languages. So trying to get them in the same room, talking the same thing, valuing each other equally, instead of, oh, GIS is just a add-on to my EAM or vice versa. I think that's the most challenging part. So if you can get those teams to work collaboratively together and understand each other's kind of priorities and what's important, then you can get the right level of integration.
Right. So parts of the business, they see the value of the data that's in the GIS, but they're just not quite willing to give up control either over their data, or they don't want to share responsibility for the integration and for the synchronization or things like that, right? Yeah, and I'll pick on a few of my GIS folks that,
sometimes they don't want to integrate. they want to keep GIS as their own system, that they don't have to be, they don't have to go ask the SAP people or the Maximo people to make a change or do X, Y, and Z. They want to have more control of it. And if they integrate, then they have to have, other stakeholders. So, but I think there's so much power in it. And I think you've heard this example before, Bruce. We've been at one customer where the GIS department never met their SAP people until we got them on the phone together and got them talking, right?
Yeah.
But again, I'm going to do a little shout out to Tyler. My first project at Spire, I think the project charter and the objectives was to integrate from the get-go from GIS to Maximo. So that was ingrained in the project. You knew it was an objective. You knew that was what we were all marching to. So that project was a great example of some really significant success. So it was good. Your first one was a very successful one that I can always point back to.
Right. That's part of the Critigen story, I think, is building on success. And I think we have talked a lot about this internally anyway, is that we feel like we have kind of a special culture in Critigen in which we're very helpful and we're team oriented. And then we also are very focused on customer success in the end. Right. So I think this is where your idea of the collaboration spectrum comes from, at least in part. So maybe you could take a stab at introducing our listeners, the people that are on today, to what you think of as the collaboration spectrum, why it's important. Let me just say before you get started, I think that what we're hearing in the marketplace is that a lot of consultants they just want to come into a kind of a one size fits all scope of work to achieve a certain outcome. And I think that we are convinced that we are, if not unique, special in the marketplace in that we're willing to come and listen to our clients and say, based on your organization, based on your needs, here's how we can collaborate with you. So that's sufficiently teed up. Maybe you could take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, over the years, we've delivered all sorts of different types of projects at Critigen, even back to our CH Tomb Hill days where we just made maps for people. So we can do anything from what we kind of call phone a friend, where an organization wants to do the implementation on their own, but maybe they just need an expert architect. Maybe it's around Azure cloud or it's around utility network, that they've got the capability and the capacity. They just want guidance to make sure they don't hit any pitfalls. So, we're willing to operate in that fashion. I think some places aren't because they don't want to put their top talent on a small little project because those things aren't that big. And then you go along the spectrum all the way to the other side is us just doing a whole turnkey implementation. So we've done quite a few of those. We were the first to do a standalone, utility network implementation. We did all the data conversion. We did all the application development, turned it on and did knowledge transfer and taught them how to use it. Right. So during the project, obviously they guided requirements and did approvals, but we did all of the work. So we can do that. And I think everybody likes to do that and wants to do that because it's the big project. What gets probably even more complicated is just something in the middle. And that's where we can co-develop together. And sometimes it is co-developing where we lead the development and we add customer team members, or the vice versa. The customer leads the development and we kind of fill in resources as well. And that gets a little bit complicated because you have to have very clear contractual responsibilities laid out, right? Like who's responsible for what and those types of things, as well as you have to be extremely transparent. So you need to share how good you are at particular skill sets. And if somebody messes up, everybody's going to know somebody messed up, but that's okay, right? Hopefully we built up the trust with our customers that everybody's going to make a mistake and we're all going to team, collaboratively work together and deliver together.
Let's focus on that middle part, because I think everybody understands what a turnkey project looks like. And I think you can envision what a phone a friend project looks like. Essentially, there's some front end stuff, maybe some design and requirements you get involved in, but mostly be there when they need you. But I think that middle, either a consultant led project or client led project, that's a hybrid one or the other. What are the considerations? You just talked about, that you have to be transparent, open. What are the other things you need to be thinking about? Like I want folks to leave saying, oh, okay, well, I understand that better. If I need to do that, I know how to do it. What would you suggest? What do they need to be thinking about if they want to have this hybrid sort of delivery model from their consultant?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing is I think most people are starting to move down an agile development path. I think that is probably the best model for it, because you build up a backlog of work and you break down your work into different chunks, and you kind of figure out what technical skills are required to do those kinds of things. So if you have a collaborative team, some which are consultants and some are customers, they can kind of assign themselves to that particular chunk of work and really work on things that they have the skill sets to do and the comfort level that they have. So I think that is probably the most ideal. I mean, I think you could still do a waterfall project, but Agile definitely lines up to that.
Okay.
And I don't know, I can maybe give a couple examples. I know that, I don't know if Gavin's on, but he's one of our customers at Marin Municipal Water District. We did a SAP GIS data synchronization project where we replaced their old aging product that they had. And we didn't have ABAP programmers in-house, and they did. So we wrote the GIS part of the integration, and their consultant or their staff member did all of the ABAP SAP components of it. And it worked out great. We were able to kind of scale it to meet their needs. We were able to keep the cost budget down. I think another project we did at another water utility, again, they had some cost constraints. So we shared our whole resource plan and our level of effort estimate. And a lot of consultants don't like to do that, right? Yeah. I said, here's all the tasks. Here's the number of hours that I think each task is going to take. How do you want me to cut budget? And they said, well, how about I take on these 5 things because I know that I can do them.
Right.
So right. Transparency, is key, because you have to be able to both share where your estimates as well as kind of your capabilities. So you have to be a little vulnerable on that front. And I think sometimes other consultants are scared to do that, or shy about it, or just nervous.
There's a project that Richard Murphy and I are working on with a small city in California, and they basically came to us. We had a master services agreement. They said, we want to do this. We've got this much money. So what are we going to have to do, and what can you help us with to accomplish this? And so that type of trust back and forth has to exist to be able to have those kinds of projects, or it's not going to work for anybody, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, and you hope you never have to break out that contract, right? Because that's the last place you ever want to go. But you still want to make sure at the beginning of the project, you've chartered each other very well and are clear that that's your responsibility and this is my responsibility. Or if that doesn't work, we can adjust, but that we've at least had a starting position to work from. So. Right.
That makes a lot of sense. We talked when we were talking about this beforehand, we were talking about not just the willingness, but the capability. What role does project management play in having that good back and forth? We have some good project managers. I think we have some of the best in the business. Maybe you could kind of call out some of the things that they're really good at. Now, I don't want the people that are listening to think this is a sales engagement. This isn't. We want to do is give you some tools that you can go back, maybe measure against your own project management and say, hey, what does that mean that I need to tweak here to make this happen?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think a lot of it's just communication and making sure that dialogue is open and having that rapport with each other. So I'm hoping a lot of people on the call watched our Critigen that We Believe video that we had at the IMGIS conference. But if we like to work with our customers very closely and collaboratively and become friends, and at the end hope they want to work with us moving forward, not that they have to work with us moving forward. So our goal is always from a team leadership perspective is that when we're done, that the customer has a self-sustaining application, that they don't have to call us at the end to keep it up to date or update it that they want to work with us moving forward, not that we've handcuffed, consultant handcuffs on them that we have to come in and do things. So I think it's just that underlying premise that we have as a structure, as a team, is that we want to be collaborative and we want to make sure that we are handing over something that our customers can maintain after we leave.
This was one of the insightful things I think you mentioned when we were talking about this beforehand, and that is I think one of the things that we strive for, and I think is not very prevalent in the industry, I don't think, is that we're not trying to create dependencies, right? We're trying to create independence, and we want the people, we want the clients we have to walk away from us and be able to be self-sufficient if they need to be, or call us if they need to be. But we want them to come back to us because they want to come back to us, not because they have to come back to us.
Yeah.
Now, just a shameless plug. Mike is poking me to say that video. We plugged it last week with Mike because we showed it the IMGIS, but it's available on our website. So if you haven't been to our website recently, we're trying to get on the homepage today. Hopefully it's up there. If not, you can go into the Our Team section, and it's available right there in the front of the Our Team section. But it's a short 8-minute watch. It's inspiring. It's fun. It'll make you smile. But it highlights a lot of our people, and it highlights kind of what the culture of Critigen and what makes us special, I think. And just to go back again one last time to that, I did have a hand in that, and I remember talking to people, and they are saying to me, "What should I say?" And I said, "Well, we're trying to create this sort of a video," and invariably everybody kind of came up with the same stuff. We like to work as a team. We like to collaborate with our clients. It was the same stuff from everybody. So I think that is indicative of what our culture is.
Yeah, I mean, so going back to your project management, I think it sets the mood, or it's just kind of our ingrained culture philosophy about projects, right? We want to make sure the customer knows where we're at with everything, that if things are going bad, we want to make sure they know it early. If we make a mistake, we're going to own up for it. If we need more help in a certain area and their team's not pulling their weight, we'll be transparent about it. Or if their team's, knocking it out of the park, that we recognize that, and that also that we have an end goal and an outcome in mind, and that we, again, want this, whatever we deliver. The last thing I want to know is we delivered a web application and then a year later they didn't use it anymore, or they couldn't update it, so they just stopped using it. Like that's not success for me. Even though financially the project may have been success, it's not something that I would be extremely proud of. But if we know that people are continuing on with the foundations that we left with them, hoping that, if they've got the next big project or they need help, they're going to call us, but that we don't have to be there to keep their system moving going forward. So
okay, that's a really good way of looking at it. I wonder if we could keep it really real here for a minute. Okay, and
I'll try.
I think there's a reason why most consultants don't want to do work like this, and I think the reason is because it's risky, right? So we've talked about a few ways that you can mitigate risk. I think the scoping part of it is where I think most people get. I think it's where it becomes more risky. So maybe talk about some tips and tricks that people can use on the scoping end of it, so they don't get stuck in a project that's really risky.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I touched on
I'm talking about clients too. I'm not talking about other consultants. Like, what can the clients do to mitigate the risk for themselves?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it goes both ways, right? If you're going to be in this co-development land, it needs to be clear for both of you to reduce risk. So I think being very transparent again about the hours by task, or RACIs are great. I'm hoping, am I echoing you or just me? Is my audio okay?
It's just kind of fading a little bit, but keep going. Let's just keep on going. We'll figure it out.
We're in a process right now of scoping out something with a customer now, where we're laying out all of the activities they want to get done over the next year, but we've laid out a very detailed RACI. So who's responsible, accountable, who's going to contribute, and who's going to be informed, and getting down to a very granular level, so everybody knows who's leading, who's supporting, and that you can kind of go back to that. And that's kind of how your estimate has come up with. And then the customer has a level of commitment that you're going to get these things done, but you're going to do it by looking at who's responsible for things.
Right. Tyler just put in the chat. He said scope creep is real.
Yeah.
So everybody understands that. I understand that. I think that's a really important aspect. Going back then to the idea of those 4 buckets. So we've got the self-serve. Well, I don't know what we call it, self-serve. We call it phone a friend, is what we like to call it, right? And we've got the client-led co-development. Mm-hmm. And then a little further up the spectrum would be the consultant-led co-development. and then a turnkey, and then there's a whole bunch of stuff in between the two. And I think what you suggested, and I want to make sure everybody heard this part, is that agile development is a really good way to go about that, because you have all of your mistakes and all of the progression right up front, and then you don't get too far ahead of yourself, right?
Yeah, and if you go back to scope creep, it's scope swap at that point, right? If we have a set number of hours or resources, then it's a matter of negotiating. Well, hey, if you want me to do this, that means I have to take off that. And if you are disciplined in your agile development, then that could work. And I look at Karen's thing. Do you find one, if you don't have a client champion, that it is really risky, because then you don't have somebody that's making decisions about that scope swap or that scope creep, right? Again, agile, if a new requirement comes up, you can do it, but that means you got to drop something off the list. And if you don't have a champion that's going to make that decision and stick behind it, it becomes very risky.
Well, let me take advantage of your expertise then. Let's say you get involved in a project that has no champion and you see the risk. What would you do? What would you do? How would you solve that problem?
I mean, yeah, that's hard. I think then the project manager has to use all of their project management skills around documentation and, documenting decisions that are made, sending out status reports, all those kinds of things, so that people, there's a track record and a log of why decisions were made. Because sometimes that's good best practices anyway, because even your champion could move on, get promoted, or go do something else. But then you've got, key business decisions documented, risk logs documented, and you just have to go back to the basics from a project management standpoint.
Do you think it's possible? Like, I'm sure that I'm going to show my ignorance here. Do you think it's possible to get together as a project team and say, hey, we've got no champion, really, and we've got nobody that is representing this project to the business. We need to make sure that we identify who that is and empower that person. Maybe the consultant can empower that person and the client by the way that they interact with them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, we've been on projects before where you have high level endorsement, but you don't have kind of the business. Like, you might have IT, but you don't have business, and you're doing everything that's going to make the IT people happy, but there's really no business owner that's really going to accept it. And so then training and change management at the lower level has to, increase, so that there's, less likely organ rejection when the solution gets rolled out. So it's definitely challenging. It makes it more difficult for the consultant if there's not the champion, because then the consultant has to do more and more on the engagement with the business and communicating and sharing vision, right?
Right. Well, and I just taking a step back and looking at that, that our whole philosophy that we want the client to succeed, like, that's really frustrating when you develop something and then it doesn't have a champion and kind of sort of dies. So that's a thing where I think that deserves a little more development in the project, is making sure that there's somebody that can champion it in the business.
Well, Bruce, before we go too far, I just want to do one little plug though for that phone a friend, because I think especially right now in the utility space with utility network, ramping up, there are a lot of organizations that just don't have the bandwidth, and they're going to need to go further down the spectrum. But there are quite a few that have very capable GIS departments that are very innovative, that want to do the implementation on their own. And luckily, we've gone through a couple go lives, so we've got all the bruises and scars and everything for it. So we want to be able to share that, and so. I would, do a little bit of a plug here. Call us. We'd love to help in any way that we can, right?
Yeah.
And again, I think a lot of other companies would rather do it all, right? Or they don't want to give up their senior people that have that expertise to phone a friend. But I think we're very willing to do that, and I think that makes us a little special.
Yeah, and I was thinking when you were saying that it's not that that's the way we want to work. We love those big projects. We love the big programs. I mean, that we work at the enterprise level all the time, but we're also understand that not everybody's the same, and we want to be involved and to have, client success. So if that's phone a friend, that's phone a friend. That's what it is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, so I want to thank you for those are good answers, and that was a good introduction to your blog. So if you're listening in the next several days, I hope we'll be getting Jaime's blog up on our website, and I'll promote it a little bit on LinkedIn as well. So take a look at that and share that around a little bit, and just get those ideas of collaboration out into the world. This is why it's important to us as a company, because this is the way we like to work, and it's the way we work the very best. So that's kind of why we're here today. Skip, thanks for coming. Karen, appreciate your question and your comments. Really appreciate it, and everybody else who's commented again today as well. I have a special treat for you though. Next week on the Graybeard Live, I'm going to be welcoming Tom Tercio. And if you've never met Tom Tercio, he's the data chef. I'm going to see if I can get him to wear his chef's hat and his chef's coat. But he's the data chef with SAP. All things spatial HANA, he's there. He's all over that. And so it's important if you have an interest in that, and even if you don't talk to your people, it'd be a good session, and you'll learn a lot, get a lot of really, really current information. And I'm gonna
buckle up. It's a lot of fun. So
yeah, usually I have to reel Tom in from the weeds, and he really likes it when I let him go. So I might just let him go a little bit, just so you can get a flavor for how much he knows. It's incredible how much he knows. Anyway, so Jaime, thanks for coming today, and I hope that folks get a feel for the way we like to work with our clients and what the culture of Critigen really is. Right, the culture is helping and teamwork and client success. That's what we're all about, and that's part of the reason I want to expose our Critigen people to the marketplaces, because I think that shows through in the work that we do. So thank you for being that person today, Jaime.
All right, thanks a lot, everyone.
All right, have a great day. We'll talk to you next week, everyone.